I've known Lenny Albin now for several years, and he is a true suspension guru. He's now working for a European-based suspension company called Nitron as the head of their US division. They have some very cool, very slick, very well-made suspension components. Check it out.
I am the technical director for Nitron USA, and I'm actually doing R&D for a bunch of their new projects that are coming down the pike early in 2014. You know, there are a few people that have heard of Nitron, obviously out of the UK, and have ordered shocks from over there. And so there are a few people that trickled in a bit of a reputation here, but really for the most part, no. We actually dropped out of an airplane in July and you know, as far as a presence here, and made our statement fairly known fairly quick with podium at the XR AMA XR Championship, literally the first time out, which was pretty cool. We produce suspension for almost every type of street bike you can imagine in most genres. Obviously our lineage kind of came from racing. We started in cars, doing Lamborghinis and Ferraris and Porsches, which we still do over in Europe. We actually hold the track at the Nürburgring on both the car and the bike. So it's actually kind of interesting. So our lineage kind of came from performance. So obviously, you know, from a hypersport standpoint, when you look at like R6s and GSX-Rs and things along those lines, one of the coolest things that we do that a lot of other manufacturers don't is every shock is completely built for the customer. And what I mean by that is we don't just put the right spring on it and ship it out the door. From the actual base of the shock, you know, like when we are coming in, that's what we start with. We start with a complete bare bones setup, and then we build that shock for that customer. The other cool thing that we're about to do, about the end of February, all the parts, which are, by the way, made by a machinist that does all the Formula One teams over in the UK, so it gives you a level of that quality, are going to be shipped over here to the US, and they're all going to be assembled at our place actually in Salt Lake City in Utah. So we're going to have the quality of the machining, European machining, and that level, and then everything's going to be assembled here. So a customer could call up with a BMW, you know, R1200 GS, give me all of his information, and I can have a shock built for him in a few days, and he'll have it custom built for him. When we go through and we do these shocks, is we start with almost every model of motorcycle that we do. We start with a entrance level line, and then we literally, the customer can build from that point. One of the biggest advantages of being custom built is that we can start from something that's affordable, and a guy can just put a better quality shock on than what he's got right there, and go all the way up to a high zoot, you know, full-on race shock. So we start off with something fairly simple. This actually has hydraulic preload, but the base shock would just be a single adjust, so rebound only, and just a really good quality shock that would replace something like, I don't know, if you're dealing with SV, or if you're dealing with, you know, some kind of really nice commuter bike. If a guy just does a commuter and occasional touring, you know, this would be a great replacement shock. It's set for his weight. It works really, really well. It's simple, it's affordable. You're talking about 515 bucks is the base shock without the hydraulic preload. And then if the guy wants to add hydraulic preload, he can do that. You know what I mean? And then build the shock as we go. This is actually the two-way shock, okay? And this is the remote reservoir version. So obviously the reservoir's remote over here. We do have piggyback versions for certain bikes that obviously, you know, a piggyback is warranted. Some of the cool things on this, obviously, is it would give you both compression and rebound adjustment. But one of the neat things that we've done that a lot of other companies don't do is, one of the things you'll notice is with the actual cable, we can actually, it actually rolls and pitches from bottom to top. You cannot bind the cable. So how many times have you put a shock on, or you've worked with a shock to where you've tried to mount either the remote reservoir or the hydraulic preload, and it gets all bound up and stuck? You actually can't do that here. We've created a system to where that can't happen, which is actually pretty cool. And then if you wanted to add hydraulic preload, you could go that way, you know. Then you go into something like this puppy, which now you'll see there's two adjusters up on the compression end. So you would have both high-low speed compression, rebound, ride height, hydraulic preload if you wanted to add it, you know, and now you're heading up into the $1,100 to $1,200 range. So our shocks start down in the $500 and can run all the way up to about $1,350, $1,400, depending on what you want. This would be our Race Pro shock. This is our, I'd like to call it the Bad Mama Jamma. Different than a lot of manufacturers, we actually have complete high-end low-speed adjustability, as well as rebound. Hydraulic preload on a piggyback assembly. This is the actual company's race shock, and we've actually won the Isle of Man with this. This is the shock that holds the track record at the Nürburgring. This is a phenomenal piece, and everything that we've done here in the States from testing, we've blown away the competition at every test. We literally, on the Harley XR1200 version of this shock, literally won, you know, was on the podium right out of the box, in the next round we won. So it gives you an example, and we've already top 10 in Supersport on the first race, again out of the box. We've also won a bunch of local WERA rounds, everything. And again, these are guys, we've had this company for 5 months in this country, so it gives you an idea of the lineage and what goes into it. This is one of the top of the line street shocks. Again, it has the same essential components in it as our race shock. It has high-low speed compression, it has rebound, it has ride height, it has all of these things. This is actually a BMW 1200 GS shock. We actually have hydraulic preload on it as well, just mounted away from the shock. Same exact quality level as our Race Pro. We can still do tons and tons with it. Same quality, same exact, you see the hoses itself, same swiveling hoses. Just a great shock. And again, the only difference between this and our race shock is really, it's going to be valve different, obviously, for the street. It's going to have a little different springing to it, you know. We're basically looking for it to try to make you comfortable in the street. But the quality level and everything else is exactly the same. If you bought, let's say, a non-reservoir, okay? So like if you, let's say you didn't have a reservoir, you bought a standard non-reservoir, reality is, if you wanted to upgrade later, it would cost you a few dollars, but I can actually change the heads, put a reservoir on it, and actually make you a, you know, dual adjustable shock. So, you know, obviously it's not something we'll do every day, but, you know, certainly if it's one of those things to where you bought a base shock, you've got it, you really like it, but you want to add compression later, it can be done without a doubt. These are two of our 4 available Harley-Davidson V-twin, you know, type shocks. Again, same quality goes into these shocks that goes into our Race Pro that we just talked about. We have a couple of different versions. The base version actually has no adjustment. It is a divided piston, which means we don't do any emulsion shocks. We don't do any of the, you know, cheapy, you know, type products. It's a divided piston, but it has no adjustment. That'd be the base shock. The most common one that I see out there is the one-way shock. This is the one-way Nitron shock, has rebound adjustment and preload on it. The rebound is why we call it one-way. We go up into from this, we actually go into a reservoir shock, and we have 2 versions of that. We have one version which has just a low speed adjuster, and this version actually has low and high speed adjustment and rebound as well. So then you actually get up into a very high performance type of shock, but extremely a lot of adjustability. So, you know, if you're on that cruiser and you really love twisties, but you have to ride, you know, and commute every day, you could back out the compression adjustment, get a really nice commute, get a nice feel for it. And then when you want to go ride the twisties and have a little fun, you can pump a little compression into it, slow the shock down a little bit, and really get a really nice day at the twisties. The quality that is here is the same quality that is here. The same quality that is here. Yeah, we can actually do vintage application as well. If you have a shock that, let's say we don't have a model for, it's really easy. I can actually build one of these right up for you. So it gives you a lot of flexibility to be able to make a lot of different units. Okay. Every piece that we use is extreme high quality. Like if you look at the shock needles, they're stainless steel, you know, because we don't want them to gall. We don't want issues with them. If you look at even the adjusters, the rebound adjusters, we actually put ball and spring assemblies into the actual adjuster. So one of the things that you run into if you've dealt with other shocks, like where the nitrogen kind of gets a little low, you don't feel clicks. Ours actually have a hard, solid click no matter what nitrogen is actually in the shock. If you look at the machining of the individual parts, and I know it's really, really hard to kind of get that, when you're looking at these things, it's just amazing. The machining is phenomenal, and the tolerances are amazing. The other thing is that we dyno every shock that goes out. So when your shock is finished and you've got that build, your shock goes from that point onto the shock dyno and literally gets verified that it's in that state and in that position for that customer, and then it goes out the door. And I don't know anybody else that actually does that. We are not mass manufacturer. We do everything for the customer, and that's really, I think, our big advantage. And even as we grow, I don't see us changing any of that. We'll still have the manual labor to where we'll just have more guys building shocks, and dynoing them and checking them and making sure that they go out the door. One of the biggest things that companies run into is getting customers to actually service their shocks, make sure the things are in good condition and everything else. And then typically the other thing that hurts a company's reputation a lot of times, even though it's not the company's fault, when we have an issue where a customer doesn't service a shock and the shock goes bad, they look at the company and go, oh, this thing is horrible. We're trying to get out the fact that every 15, 20,000 miles on the street, you have to service these shocks. Oil degrades, seals get bad, things happen, normally, and what we're doing is we're basically saying that if you service the shocks between 15, 20,000 miles or every 2 years, whichever comes first, we will lifetime warranty the shocks. So this way we know that when fresh oil is in there and fresh seals are in there, these things will not wear. Our machining is to that point and the tolerances are awesome. We'll make sure that people are taken care of, and that's the number one deal. If you have somebody local, it could be even quicker. But sending it over back to Salt Lake where we are, our turnaround is just a few days and you'll have it back and you'll be good to go.
I have a feeling that with Lenny at the helm, Nitron is going to make a big impact on the racing and the street scene for years to come. You may also see some Nitron components on future Cycle Sports TV project bikes. At least let's hope so. Okay, so don't forget to check out the rest of our coverage of the Progressive International Motorcycle Show on our YouTube channel. Lots of videos to check out, so make sure to subscribe. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and Instagram, all at Cycle Sports TV. And for Cycle Sports TV, I'm Patrick Harris.